Hello YouTubers, today marks the 20th anniversary of Lethal Weapon 4. Now I'm a huge fan of the Lethal Weapon franchise, and Lethal Weapon was one of the earliest R-rated films I ever saw. And I got into the series when Lethal Weapon 4 came out in 1998. They just released the special edition director's cut versions of the Lethal Weapon trilogy, and I got the Lethal Weapon films on VHS with number 3, 2, and then 1. And I was really excited to see Lethal Weapon 4 at the time. Now, I was only 7 years old, so I couldn't go see R-rated films in theaters yet, even though I saw plenty of R-rated movies at home. One day, Lethal Weapon 4 arrived on VHS, and we rented it at Hollywood Video. It was a 2-day rental, and I fell in love with the film. I loved Jet Li's performance, his first film as a villain, first American-produced film as well. Mel Gibson as Martin Riggs, he's back with shorter hair. Him and Riggs are too old for this shit now. I love Danny Glover as Murtaugh, Rene Russo, Chris Rock as Butters, Joe Pesci as Leo Getz. The gang is all here, and it's fantastic. Richard Donner returns as director of this film. And later on, my mother bought it for me, previously viewed from Hollywood Video on VHS, and I was a huge fan of these films growing up. Lethal Weapon 4 had a profound effect on me. Everything felt so modern and new. Now, of course, it doesn't quite live up to the dark and gritty nature of the first two films, but I kind of like it better than Lethal Weapon 3. I love all the films, but this is a conclusion we really needed. They pulled out all the stops on this one. Even though there is more humor, the action still delivered. That highway chase, the freeway chase is fantastic, and that final fight with Jet Li, Murtaugh, and Riggs, fantastic. And Jet Li, again, he moves so fast that they couldn't capture him on film. He had to slow down for the film to capture his movements. And this was done after Steel, Batman and Robin, and Lost in Space were flops for Warner Brothers. They needed a safe script to make them some money in 1998. They're almost on the verge of bankruptcy. So luckily, Lethal Weapon 4 was rushed into production, which explains why Martin Riggs has shorter hair. Mel Gibson didn't have time to grow it out, but I thought it was fitting since his character was older. And they made Lethal Weapon 4, and it constantly went through some rewrites. Lee Butters was supposed to be a gay police officer. That didn't quite work, so they kind of poked fun at it, and he ended up being Rihanna's husband. Leo Getz was also added in at the last minute. But I love this. It's pretty much Murtaugh and Riggs. They get promoted to captains for a while, and it's them against the triads in Los Angeles. And stuff gets intense, stuff gets personal. The triads target their home. And much like Lethal Weapon 2, the stakes are high and they deal with international villains. I love the humor in this. Mel Gibson and Danny Glover have such great chemistry, and in this film, it's just fantastic with Chris Rock. Some funny stuff there. I love that scene with Leo Getz and Butters, where he's just like, who's the perp? And he's just like, oh, you see a brother in a car, you think I'm a perp. And he's just like, we'll work together, I'm the bomb. And he's just like, yeah, we'll work together as soon as I open up a cereal shop, you fucking leprechaun. I love that moment. That moment is so hilarious. Moments like that in this film that really give it a lot of heart and humor. And it's a good contrast with the more dark and intense moments. Again, that car chase, oh my god, the Pontiac Grand Am seems so new back then, but I love that car chase, all real. They don't make movies like this anymore, where each sequel had to feel earned. You didn't think of franchises, and there was no, like, CGI. It was done practical with real effects, real stunt people. And that goes a long way. This is a fantastic action film. Lethal Weapon is the best buddy cop series. I think the only one that compares to it is probably like Rush Hour and 48 Hours, really. But yeah, I love this. Grand finale. I love the fight, how brutal it is. Murtaugh's actually included in the final fight. I just love the way Martin Riggs and Wu Sing Kang go against each other in the film. And for a while, you think Riggs is going to die. Luckily, they make it out, and it has such a perfect ending with a song, Why Can't We Be Friends, with like a photo yearbook, a scrapbook, so to speak, from the production of all 4 films. But 20 years later, you could definitely see that there's more humor in the film, but there definitely are some more serious, intense moments, especially with Jet Li's character. And I think it lives up to the other 3 films. I think Lethal Weapon is one of those rare franchises where all the films are enjoyable. There's some you may personally like more than others, but you can't deny the chemistry between Danny Glover and Mel Gibson, and all these films are special in their own way. And there are rumors of a Lethal Weapon 5. as much as I would love to see that, I kind of hope they don't touch it, because this was such a perfect ending that 20 years later, I'm like, you know what? They knew when to stop while they were ahead. It was believable still. It wasn't like stuff like Die Hard or Rambo or Terminator where they kind of come back when they're older. Like, no. Lethal Weapon did it right, and it's still the best buddy cop film franchise and one of the best action film series ever made. And how many films can say that after 20 years? I mean, the original Lethal Weapon is over 30 years old. It's about 31 years old, so yeah. Even what some consider the lowest point of the franchise is still pretty good in its own right compared to films now, and I love this film. This film, the release of it, the hype around it is what got me into Lethal Weapon, got me into Mel Gibson films along with Mad Max, and ultimately inspired me to be a filmmaker. And I just have a special place for Lethal Weapon 4 in my heart. I even love the soundtrack, Fire in the Hole by Van Halen. Who could forget that opening with a flamethrower and Riggs telling Murtaugh to get in his boxers? The part with the boat, the sharks, and there's other stuff with people being smuggled in, especially now in the time we live in. I mean, there's stuff over immigration that's done a bit differently than other movies, and it was very much ahead of its time in that regard. There's a lot of stuff in here that's much deeper when you start to analyze it, and counterfeiting money and stuff like that. And each Lethal Weapon kind of parallels each other with the odds and evens, and I went over this in my reviews. You can check them out on my channel here in the links below, but I really like this film series, and yeah, Lethal Weapon 4, whatever you think about it, it still is a highly enjoyable film, and yeah, I love it. So those are my thoughts on Lethal Weapon 4 for its 20th anniversary. I have reviews of all 4 films and my favorites ranking list. You can check those out here. And also, let me know your thoughts about Lethal Weapon 4. What are your favorite Lethal Weapon films? What are your favorite moments from Lethal Weapon 4? Feel free to let me know down in the comments, and enjoy these videos here of the previous Lethal Weapon videos I've done. We're not too old for this shit, because it's good.